The Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad.
Oh boy.
Is it a sequel? Is it a remake? Is it a reboot? What is it? I think by definition, it's a standalone sequel, but you know what? It confuses me, and I'm entrenched in the film scene. So I can only imagine the average consumer trying to figure out what exactly the hell this thing was or really is. James Gunn wrote and directed it. James Gunn, obviously famous for Guardians of the Galaxy. Never forget, he wrote the first 2 live action Scooby-Doo movies directed by my boy, Raja Gosnell.
God, I forgot about that.
And he's an interesting guy, James Gunn. He's made a couple low-key movies that I like too. Super with Rainn Wilson. That's a weird one if you've seen that one. That is a weird, peculiar movie with Elliot Page is in that as well. And then you also have Slither, which is kind of a Tremors-esque horror movie, like a creature feature sort of weird thing. It pays homage to Tremors, that movie Slither, in the best possible way. It pays homage. If you remember Tremors, the character Earl Bass, played by Fred Ward in the first and second movie, the high school in Slither is named Earl Bass High School. And I am one of probably 4 people who caught that watching the movie.
Or less.
Or less. Don't set expectations too high. But now he's got The Suicide Squad, and I believe he's the first director now to helm a movie for Marvel and DC during the concurrent universes. I think he's got to be. I don't know who the hell else would be, unless I'm missing an obvious name over here. Who the hell else has directed both a Marvel and DC movie during the concurrent universes? So he's the only one on that one. But it shows you the power of James Gunn in terms of creative, power and just the way he's held in high regard. But let's make no mistake over here. You're not following up Suicide Squad, David Ayer's Suicide Squad from 2016. You're not following up the Goodfellas of superhero movies. Let's just say that. You're not following up a piece of high art. You know, what's next is, I don't know. What's next? Is Mark Webb going to helm the reboot of, pick up the pieces of Josh Trank's Fantastic Four?
I would love to see someone try.
That's a poisoned property. Fantastic Four.
God,
that's
three times over.
And they still can't get it. But anyway, though, let's talk about The Suicide Squad, now in theaters and streaming on HBO Max until September 5th, I believe is what my app told me today. I'm going to start by saying this. First things first, I was dismayed initially with the trailers and everything. Because let me tell you, one of the things I loved about David Ayer's Suicide Squad, there's a couple things. I honestly did not hate that movie. I really didn't. I
remember you being like lukewarm on it, but not like, internet. Hard.
No, I wasn't piling on. I wasn't piling on by any means. But there's a couple things that I didn't truly enjoy. One of which was Croc in the original Suicide Squad movie. I liked Croc a lot. I liked that character. I thought he was a fun presence. Let me tell you though, man, I was kind of upset when he wasn't in this. Let me tell you about the OG Mr. King Shark, though. That's the dude right there. That's the dude. I love that dude. And the 2 reasons I love him. Number 1, he's funny as hell. Number 2, that I love about King Shark, and I just have to get this out of here because if I wrote a written review, which I don't think I'm going to write a written review of this movie, I think I'm going to let this suffice. I would devote a paragraph to King Shark because I'll tell you right now, the other thing I loved about King Shark too is they didn't try to make him cute and cuddly like Baby Yoda, like Baby Groot. They didn't try to make him cute and cuddly. They just made him who he was. They just made him like, he's got like a dad bod. He's got like a weird sort of, like wobble and walk. He's kind of prickly.
He's a shark.
Me some King Shark. I love me some King Shark. That dude was funny as hell. He's got a really emotional moment in an aquarium that I really liked.
He's a king, but he's an aged king, middle-aged King Shark. With just how he just lumbers about. Still got the mass. Honestly, kind of leaning into the what's his name? He was in Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow as the not Captain America.
David Harbour?
Yeah. He's got like that built dad bod of like David Harbour, but a shark. Uh, but it's funny. Out of all of them, that's the one that you gravitate to the most.
Dude, I loved King Shark, man. When he drops his F-bomb, I rewound that like 3 times. Shout out HBO Max. And then, like I said, that scene in the aquarium with the fish, which I won't ruin. And it kind of ends a little poorly for him at the end of the day. But like that, just that moment, that serene moment when he comes face to face with those fish. I like King Shark, man. I really did. I thought he was fun. But there's more to like about this movie than just King Shark. And we shall discuss that. I've been talking quite a bit here. Dom, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, let me just say before we take our Zoom-sponsored break, which is now imposing on us with only 2 participants. I don't know if you saw that, Steve.
Yes, I do. I do see that.
Regardless, yeah, I was actually surprised by this. I had like subterranean expectations going into this. I actually never saw the original. That the other Suicide Squad, the D-list Suicide Squad.
The David Ayer, Will Smith Suicide Squad.
Yes, exactly. So, I can't really shit on it for having not seen it. That's something I adhere to where it's like, hey, if I haven't seen it, I can't shit on it, even though a lot of people have. But Steve, you were lukewarm on it. So, it's whatever. I will say one thing that I did not like from the original Suicide Squad, just one thing, is that I did not like its aesthetic, at least in the trailers. The movie poster was horrible. It was like super ugly and whatever. It was like really try hard with what they did with the Joker. I know it's really easy to shit on, that Joker with 30 seconds to heroin addict Joker, but it's just a really bad aesthetic, and I was not particularly attracted to what I was seeing. This one though, it felt a lot more. It's gonna sound weird coming from one with a freaking talking, walking shark and a giant starfish, but it's actually kind of felt more grounded. Like John Cena's stupid ass Boy Scout look in this movie, I love so much. Just on a comedic level, I'm gonna try to flash it on the screen here now. It looks so freaking dumb, but like so good. It's so fun. That helmet is
you know what the best way I can describe, for somebody who hasn't seen the Suicide Squad, John Cena's Peacemaker character.
Yeah.
Peacemaker. You know what I call it? You know what I would say the best way to describe him is Captain America.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the best way to describe him is Captain America.
Dude, that's pretty bang on, and I like it. There's a dude walking around with polka dots all over his body. Somehow it worked. Honestly, it was kind of giving me some vibes of like the HBO's Watchmen from 2019, where it's
we're gonna go there. Okay.
Yeah, just in aesthetics only, because that series is quite frankly the greatest.
No, I'm not judging. That's an interesting comp.
Let me just say, I think Watchmen is the greatest piece of superhero media in this millennium, possibly quite ever, to be honest with you. But that's another conversation entirely. But I just like how there was like a groundedness and like a self-acknowledgement in aesthetic alone with how stupid all these people look. Because when they're in a normal jungle against normal looking soldiers, it's like, what is this dude going around with? Why is Michael Rooker like have this long ass white spaghetti stringy hair? Like that looks so dumb, and like everyone here looks really really dumb, and it's funny. Like it's not even like that looks like try hard and stupid like the Joker was, but it actually blended really well. And the other thing that really stood out to me, that was like one thing that really stood out to me. The other thing was the first 15 minutes. I actually really fell in love with this first 15 minutes of this movie. And the rest of the movie failed to meet those expectations, which, hey, you know what? Whatever. We'll take what we can get. The fact that I got anything out of this film is good. So I'll take it for what it is. So it surprised me on a good, decent level. But man, that opening, not the opening scene, but the first action sequence is you kind of see it coming, particularly if you look at the marketing materials and then you see who's in that scene. But the whole shtick with the Suicide Squad and any film featuring them specifically is that someone's going to die, you know, like, hey, not everyone here is going to make it out all happy and hunky-dory. But you know that. And you kind of, Steve, tell me, you kind of know who was going to die and who was going to live with some gray, you know, with some like, that could be a toss-up. But there wasn't, did you really feel a tension with some of these characters?
No, who died? I wasn't shocked by any of the deaths. I'm not going to lie, though, and I probably should have known this. I just only watched the first trailer for this, so I'm not going to lie. That opening sequence kind of caught me a little off guard. I was thinking, like, is this how they're going to introduce him? Because this movie, the one thing it does, there's 2 points I want to make for the Zoom sponsored intermission. The 2 things that this movie does that are kind of commendable in a way. The number one thing is it completely forgoes the world building aspect, which the original Suicide Squad did almost to a fault. Yes. And I kind of liked it for this up until a point where they sat down and had Viola Davis's character sit down, honestly, with each member of the Suicide Squad, detail their backstory. And that was like 40 minutes before we actually got into what we paid to see. And it was pretty good just on it. It was like 30, 40 minutes by my memory. Memory's fungible, but I remember it being like a first act and then some of backstory. And it was interesting to a degree, but there was a certain point that it was like, all right, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Put the gas on it here. James Gunn really has no interest in world building here, which I find kind of commendable after so many movies, so many superhero movies in particular, that set us up for the sequel. That's what they're trying to get you out for the sequel, for what you want to see, so they can do the origin story for the first one, where this movie just kind of just drops you right in the middle of everything. And it's like, you'll figure it out. You know what you're getting into. And I kind of like that because it bestows a little responsibility on the audience to kind of acclimate into the environment. I don't need characters to grab my hand and walk me through the whole inner workings, especially now. It'd be different if this was like the first DC movie, the first movie in the DC cinematic universe. Jesus Christ, we're 25 Marvel movies in and what, like 8 or 9 DC movies in? Like, come on. You know what I mean? We're at the point now where it's like, we kind of know this formula. The other thing I'll quickly mention before we take the Zoom sponsored intermission, the other thing I liked about this is that James Gunn shows his roots in this movie, because this movie has an unmistakable feel of a Trauma movie. In a lot of ways, if you know what Trauma is a company that specializes in horror films and low budget horror films. James Gunn actually got his start. He worked on one of Trauma's most famous movies. It's called Terror Firmer. And Trauma movies are notorious for being goofy, silly, bloody, disgusting. They made Poultrygeist. They made Toxic Avenger. They made so many different weird movies. Cannibal the Musical. If you haven't heard of them, I would look into them. I know you're not a big horror movie guy, but they're at least interesting. And I think there's the Walk of Fame, you know. But I always said, like, and I'm a big football fan, there's no like filmmaker Hall of Fame. There's no like movie Hall of Fame where it's not like, you know, like you think about people who would get like a gold jacket at the end of their career, you know, like a lifetime achievement, like Martin Scorsese.
I don't know. Like you're saying, there's not that?
There's nothing. I think there's no like one concrete agency that does, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I know there's the Academy and everything like that, obviously, but it's not like it's not like the NFL has the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Okay.
You know, there's not like the one quintessential industry. There's other benchmarks, but there's not something like that. The reason I bring that up, though, is I don't think you can tell the history. If you were to write a 10,000 page book on the history of cinema, particularly American cinema, I don't think you could tell the story of American cinema without a chapter on trauma. I really don't. I think trauma is that indispensable, especially to horror. I think trauma is that indispensable to the ethos of independent filmmaking. Lloyd Kaufman, the founder and CEO of Trauma, makes a cameo appearance in the Suicide Squad. Oh. He is seen very briefly when they're going into, I think it's a nightclub. It's like about an hour into the movie. He's elbowed out of the way by Idris Elba.
Oh, okay.
By Bloodsport. He's elbowed out of the way in the opening. He's a blinking. I had to rewind it to make sure it was him.
Trauma, 45 years of disrupting media, according to their website.
Lloyd Kaufman is an interesting fella too. Funny guy. I've always wanted to meet him at a convention and stuff and just pick his brain, because trauma is a fascinating thing. And the reason I say the Suicide Squad has a connection to it, not only did James Gunn get his start with trauma, but you've kind of detected like a trauma influence throughout his career. It's bloody, it's gory. There's a reliance, maybe not so much here, but just in the body horror and the practical effects. I mean, you see a guy's top get sliced off his head. I'm sitting there watching this movie today thinking, that's trauma. That's trauma right there. That's like the disgusting, no holds barred, like where other movies, where mainstream horror cuts away from the carnage, trauma will show you it, sometimes in disgusting, gag-inducing detail. And that's what makes them special, I think, is that they give you what you want. If you're a horror movie fan like me, you love seeing that stuff, and you love seeing it done well. So I'm happy that James Gunn, as big as he is, as popular as he is, he knows his roots and he digs his roots. And I respect him for that, because there's a real trauma influence. Even the Project Starfish, which I won't get away, that is something that I could see out of a Toxic Avenger movie right there. That whole sequence and that whole just how it comes to be. This is essentially in many ways a 9-figure budget trauma movie. And I love that. And that's probably the thing I love the most about that. Number 2 would be King Shark. But number 1 would be the trauma influence that bleeds from this movie.
Yeah, that actually makes, I'm not familiar with Trauma's work directly, but I'm not, if you state that connection, Steve, I've probably felt their influence through some degree. I like the fact that you mentioned that, yeah, when that dude gets his head sliced open very cleanly and you see the brain and all that stuff, I mean, it's probably influenced, I don't know, would you say it influenced Tarantino's very indie grounded,
undoubtedly
violence?
Undoubtedly. I mean,
that's the more mainstream connection, where that's how people know, like,
sure,
oh yeah, violence, Tarantino, and all the exploding.
Sure, I mean, even beyond the Toxic Avengers got to be their most famous property, but they also have a Class of Nukem High. And again, I did look up and confirm myself. This was the early 90s, but Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they have not done many films out of South Park, but they did do Cannibal the Musical.
I was about to say, what else have they done? Cannibal the Musical.
That is a trauma movie.
Really?
That is a trauma movie.
There you go. That makes, okay, sorry. The one gag I always love from Cannibal the Musical, I need to actually rewatch it, but I was so young. I probably a whole new movie for me now that I'm older and understand things.
Probably. I saw it young too.
But I did understand this joke, and we'll talk about Suicide Squad shortly, I promise. But the one joke from Cannibal the Musical is when the dude is tap dancing, but the snow is there because they're in the snow, right? It like goes up to his knees, so you hear the tapping of the tap dance, but he's just like doing this, and you don't see his legs. And I'm like, that's hilarious. that's such a silly but simple and almost genius gag.
I think that was Trey and Matt's first feature. I think it was, because Orgasmo came afterwards.
Orgasmo. I never saw that.
And they've only done that and South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and Team America. Those are, I think, the only and Basketball, but they didn't direct that, I don't believe. So they've only done a handful of movies, live action movies especially. And Cannibal the Musical was one of them. But anyway, back to Suicide Squad, though. I wanted to make sure I'd state that trauma influence because it bleeds from this movie, and I'm glad it does. Because the other thing, and I promise, Dom, I'll let you chime in over here. You can tell I haven't done this show in 2 weeks. The other thing that I liked about Suicide Squad, this one a lot too, is that, this honestly feels like a movie with a vision. Good or bad, flawed or perfect, flawed or flawless, whatever you want to consider it. This movie has a vision. I don't always love it. I didn't love this movie by any means. I kind of got a little tired of it in some parts and a little fatigued by it, but that's also me with James Gunn in general. In some ways, I also think that the R rating doesn't always help James Gunn in so many ways. I think that Guardians both being PG-13 grounded him in sort of a way where this movie starts to teeter-totter. It's not so much the gore. I can live with the gore. I've actually watching Bloodless Marvel much of my life. I kind of welcome gore.
Is it just gratuitous?
It's The thing with James Gunn that you come to expect, and if you watch a movie like Super with Rainn Wilson, you come to expect this too. I kind of get tired of sort of the nihilistic browbeating in a way, and sort of like the darkness and sort of the jokes and stuff like that. I kind of get a little beaten over with that in some respects. But at the same time, though, this movie has a vision. And the problem with the original Suicide Squad, the rotten core of it that soured even some of the more positive aspects of the movie, which I think people are too quick to dismiss, the original David Ayers, is that even David Ayer says himself, he's come out and said this, I saw it. He goes, I've seen it a couple times. He goes, this was not the movie we set out to make. He goes, there's a lot of bickering creative decisions. The movie was changed in editing. He's like, this was not the movie me and the cast were making. He's like, when I saw it, I was kind of dumbfounded by that. We weren't making this type of a movie, or at least this movie that was this choppy. And after that brouhaha, it's like with this one, it feels self-contained. It honestly kind of feels like they don't even care if they get a sequel, which is good because they're not, with the way this movie's been performing. But it feels like a man's vision. And that's what I respect the most about this iteration of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with that. It's kind of sad that the bar is there for this franchise.
Right.
It just really blows my mind, because when did Suicide Squad come out?
2016.
2016. So just 5 years later, and
5 years ago, August 2016. Yeah.
Wow. And even when that movie came out, the fatigue was really like settled in for superhero movies, and now it's 2021, and it's like reeking of all that. Marvel is like trying to break into like TV just to kick things up again. So yeah, I'm very glad that I'm happy that the Suicide Squad was able to go out on a bang and on terms that, if you love this property, I would hope you would love this movie and you can find peace with it. Because I don't really care. I'm kind of tired of Harley Quinn, to be honest with you, which sucks because Margot Robbie's awesome as Harley Quinn. And she her whole character, her whole shtick of being, a victim of Joker's abuse and all that stuff. I actually haven't watched Birds of Prey, but I was just so tired of her in general. And it didn't help that just culturally we were just all obsessed over Harley Quinn, like on a really heightened level after Suicide Squad came out. But like, it's fine there. So I'll leave it. Culturally, I think Suicide Squad should leave it there as it is. It won't get a sequel, but at least they went out with a really good bang that feels like Suicide Squad. So I'm with you there. As for the movie itself, yeah, it meanders. It falls into a lot of superhero shit that you expect. A lot of like, it's like elongated. You're about this good guy's about to get executed, and someone's going to save their ass at the very last second while a gun's being pointed at him. No tension there whatsoever. As we talked about earlier, you kind of know who's going to live. And a lot of people that are going to die. And then some characters are in, but it's like, they might live, they might die. It doesn't really matter. So the kind of the novelty of it was kind of taken away. If this was the movie we got in 2016, it'd be a little more novel and we'd have fun with it. But by now, I think, just the fatigue of having a second Suicide Squad of pretty much just like a second go around. It's like, can we just get it right the first time, please? But whatever. Honestly, I enjoyed the hell out of the monster. It was a giant ass monster. Again, I've been watching Watchmen, the HBO series. I'm just gonna keep pushing that out there, as well as the Harley Quinn animated show, starring Penny from Bazinga, freaking
Big
Bang Theory. The Penny from there, main girl from Big Bang Theory. I forget her name. Kaylee Kuko. How could I forget a name like that?
Oh, Kaylee Kuko. Okay. Yeah. I
Kaylee
can't stand that program, so
Oh yeah,
I've made a conscious effort to avoid Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
for
well, it sucks
years.
because I'm sure a lot of the actors are great, like Kaylee Cuoco, who
Oh,
does a
I love
great.
Melissa
Yeah,
Rauch who's in it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, Kaylee does a great job as Harley Quinn in that animated series, and I'm loving that. That's like perfect Adult Swim, like late night, like that actually like brought me back. I was like, God damn, it's like I'm watching not Brack show, but something stupid like that, stupid and fun and somehow profound at the same time. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good popcorn flick. I know that's kind of cliche for a reviewer to say, but that's kind of where we're at. I am thankful for the few twists this movie was able to give us, and overall it's like, all right, cool, we're done with this. I'm done with Suicide Squad forever. I don't know if we even need to pick up Harley Quinn ever again. I don't know, Steve, where are you at from there?
yeah. I mean, going forward too, like I liked a lot of the casting. I mean, Viola Davis is the only returning, I think, non-Suicide Squad member in this movie. Harley or Margot Robbie obviously returns with this thing as well. And then you get like, you know, new additions like John Cena and Idris Elba. I thought Idris Elba did very well. I thought Idris Elba, as far as performance is concerned, I think he probably gives the best performance.
He also has like the most to work with because he has like he has the most emotional weight.
Sure, he does. But I thought that like even the deadpan comedy, he killed. He crushed it. I thought that was very cool to see with him, to assume that role and give him a little bit more diversity on that. But yeah, like you hit the nail on the head. A lot of my points too. Like it really, it doesn't reinvent the wheel so much as it really just, I don't want to say it seems the status quo, but at the same time, like, it doesn't go too crazy with like the self-referential things. I kind of like how it incorporates sort of the chapter little things into the scenery in a way. But you know what, as far as like this movie goes, about halfway through it, you know what movie I thought of? And we reviewed it on Sleepless. I mean, think about this for a second. Big budget movie helmed by a director with and a writer with legions of fans who gets this creative playground, a lot of money, a big cast, a lot of special effects, a lot of explosions, and a lot of set pieces. And he gets 2-hour runway. This movie is honestly not too much different from Army of the Dead. It's not much different.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking like, why I'm going to Watchmen, but there's another movie. I guess it goes to show how forgettable that movie was for me. But yeah, no, that's bang on. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, it's Army of the Dead in a lot of ways. And I'd take Gunn style over Snyder style most days, even though I'm not really in love with either. I'm more in like with Gunn, and I have my strong criticisms of Snyder. But it's really kind of like I'm in the same space as Army of the Dead here, where it's like, and I liked Army of the Dead. I know I liked it more than you. I liked Army of the Dead quite a bit. It was really the length and the abundance of characters that wore on me with that movie. But with this movie too, it's like I respect the vision. It made me laugh. It made me wince, and it gives you what you want at the end of the day. And that's why I think ultimately I give this a positive review, Suicide Squad, because we're not going to get a sequel to this, just given that this movie has really sucked at the box office. But like, at least, you know, it'll get rebooted in 10 years, and it'll be an 8-episode, you know, Disney Plus, you know, Paramount Plus, Cock Plus, whatever series they're going to put it on. But like, it's at the same time though, we're going to have one pretty good Suicide Squad movie. And at the end of the day, I'll take that. And I give it 3 out of 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than the original. Granted, that's not a high bar to set, but I think James Gunn came with a vision. He came with an idea. He didn't want to spoon feed audiences with another origin story. He assembled an electric cast of fun characters to spend time with. Each one, I feel like, even towards like Ratcatcher and Polka Dot Man and everything, you know, each one of them gets sort of their own little moment to shine and gets at least some backstory. So it feels like there's a little bit of weight to their characters. I did like it, and I love the trauma influence that's evident in this movie from the very beginning. And I love my boy King Shark. I might even have to go out and buy a Funko Pop of my dude for King Shark, because that guy's legit. I'd watch a spinoff of that guy. I was upset going into this because I was like, I liked Croc in the original, and Croc, I think, did even less than King Shark in this movie. So I was not disappointed by that. Shout out King Shark, man. I got to look if there's like comics of him or something. I doubt it, but I got to look and see if there's like a comic with him or something. I got to get more King Shark in my life. Like how the culture is obsessed with Baby Yoda. That's your boy over here for King Shark. I'm a stand for him, though. 3 out of 4 stars for Suicide Squad. Dominic, send us home on the new James Gunn movie.
Look, man, it's at least satisfying, years from now when all YouTubers do their retrospective on this weird event that there were 2 Suicide Squad movies, basically one a reboot of the other. It's like this weird second chance. That it's a cloud hanging if you're like in the know of, just barely even in the know about how the industry and superhero culture, whatever. Sadly, I am to a degree, but I don't want to be. But anyway, it's just this weird phenomenon. It's a cloud hanging over this whole franchise, and it's going to be laid to rest after this. That's fine. They got their second chance, and it works. It really does work. It is serviceable. It is good. It got a chuckle out of me. I'm not joking when I say that first action sequence did legitimately kill me. Like it Nathan Fillion has the most useless power, and it killed me. And like what how they end that sequence is perfect. The campy zoom in, the campy music, and all that stuff. What they do there, you can just watch. It's for free on HBO Max if you have the subscription, of course. Just watch it for those first half hour. If you don't get sucked in, just whatever. But just watch that first one, and you'll be good. And yeah, dude, look, Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie is perfect as Harley Quinn. Viola Davis is perfect as Amanda Waller. If you can't get Vin Diesel to voice your barely talking creature, get Sylvester Stallone to do it as King Shark, and it's just as effective. It works. So much of this works, and yeah, it falls back into a lot of superhero stuff, a lot of predictability. Not a lot of tension, to be honest, because they kind of blow the tension in the first 15 minutes, but I'm actually okay with that because it made me laugh. So yeah, 2.5 out of 4 stars for me. Let's move on. Let's move on from there in terms of this franchise.
No, in 3 years I want Suicide Squad presents King Shark.
You know what? Actually, I looked on the Wikipedia page. They're making a Peacemaker TV show.
Yes, they are. That I knew. They are making a Peacemaker TV show. It's not a King Shark TV show, but,